Welcome to True Echo, where the stories you're about to hear aren't just inspiring, they're unforgettable. Today's story takes us into a high school graduation where pride, prejudice, and quiet power collide. A black Marine mother, exhausted from duty, shows up to witness her son's big moment, only to be told she doesn't belong. But when four silent men stand up, the entire crowd goes breathless. This isn't just about uniforms or respect. It's about what happens when dignity refuses to back down. Stay with us. Danielle Freeman didn't have time to be tired. But exhaustion had long since made itself at home in her body. 12 hours on her feet at Camp Pendleton, half spent under the California sun on the range, the other half navigating a surprise inspection, had left her worn to the bone. Her work uniform was faded, her boots caked with grit, her name tag scratched from years of wear. She barely glanced at the locker room clock. 2:38 p.m. Her son Jalen's high school graduation started at 3:30. That gave her less than an hour to cross Oceanside, find parking, get through security, and make it to her seat before his name was called. There was no time to change clothes, no time to reapply makeup or even splash water on her face. But she wasn't about to break a promise, not to her son. Not after everything. Danielle jogged to the parking lot, yanked open the driver's side of her beat-up Chevy Malibu, and took off. As she merged onto the freeway, one hand on the wheel, the other gripping the base of the steering column, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Halpern. "We're inside. They started early. Want me to save you a seat?" Danielle fired off a voice message. "Thanks. I'll find you. On my way." Then she floored the gas just enough to shave off another 2 minutes. The parking lot at Crestmont High School was already full when she arrived. Banners flapped in the wind. Folding chairs lined the school's front lawn in neat rows. At the entrance stood 2 security guards checking tickets, more ceremonial than anything else, Danielle thought. She parked in a dirt patch, slammed the car door shut, and took a deep breath. She glanced at her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her eyes were bloodshot. Elbows stained with oil. She adjusted her collar and name tag. "This is fine," she whispered to herself. "You're his mom. That's what matters." Danielle moved quickly but quietly through the crowd, ignoring the stares, the sideways glances, the whispers. She wasn't here for them. She spotted Mrs. Halpern near the back and slipped into the folding chair next to her. The school band was tuning up, and the principal was adjusting the mic stand. Rows of graduating seniors in black robes lined up by the gym doors. Danielle spotted him instantly, Jalen. Her son. Her reason for everything. But before she could wave, a shadow blocked the sun. 2 men in navy polos stood over her, one with his arms folded, the other looking like he hadn't done this job very long. "Ma'am," said the older one, "we're going to need you to come with us." Danielle turned toward the guards, her face calm but firm. "Excuse me?" she asked. "This section's for guests of graduating students only," the older one replied. "We've had some reports. A possible disruption." Danielle blinked, her tone unwavering. "I'm Jalen Freeman's mother." The younger guard stepped in, fumbling with his words. "We'll just need to verify that. Do you have a ticket?" She reached into her pocket, pulled out the crumpled PDF printout from the school's website, and handed it over. The young one examined it like it was counterfeit. "Your ID?" the older one added. Danielle handed over her military ID. "Gunnery Sergeant Danielle Freeman. United States Marine Corps." The older man stared at it, then at her uniform, then back again. "We're going to have to double-check with administration," he said, stiffly. Danielle gave him the same tight-lipped, practiced smile she gave back at base to junior Marines who didn't know any better. "I came straight from Camp Pendleton. My son is graduating today. I'm not leaving this seat." The young one hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. The older one's voice hardened. "Ma'am, we're asking nicely. Please step aside." Around them, the murmurs had begun. A ripple of confusion, discomfort, judgment. Danielle didn't move. "I've done nothing wrong," she said, her voice soft but unmistakably resolute. "You can call whoever you need to. I'm not moving." Then came a voice from behind. Calm. Measured. And commanding. "She said she's not moving." The two guards turned to see a man stand up 3 rows back. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Civilian clothes, but military presence all over him. Chief Petty Officer Brian Doyle. And he wasn't alone. 3 other men stood beside him. 1 black, 1 Latino, 1 Pacific Islander. All of them quiet. All of them solid. Doyle began walking toward them, past knees and folding chairs, never raising his voice. "You know who this woman is?" he asked the guards. "She says she's the mother of a student," the older one replied, tone clipped. "She is," Doyle said. "And she's a gunnery sergeant in the United States Marine Corps. Which makes her your superior. In just about every way." The younger guard suddenly had a fascination with the concrete at his feet. The older one held his stance, but it wavered. Another SEAL stepped forward. His name tag read Alufa. "Y'all picked the wrong woman to single out today," he said, not threatening, but heavy with truth. "We're just doing our job," the older one snapped. "No," Doyle countered, his voice calm but cutting. "You saw a black woman in a uniform, looking tired, and made an assumption. And now you're about to humiliate her in front of her son, in front of this whole community." A new figure jogged up, a school staffer with a lanyard and a walkie-talkie. "Is there a problem here?" he asked. Doyle nodded toward Danielle. "No, sir. Just some confusion about who belongs." The staff member glanced at Danielle's ID, then at the guards. "There's no issue," he said quickly. "Thank you, ma'am, for your service. Please enjoy the ceremony." The guards backed off without another word. Just as Danielle sank back into her seat, a voice called over the loudspeaker, "Jalen Freeman." She jerked up, eyes locked on the stage. There he was. Her son. Cap slightly askew. Tassel swinging. His walk proud, but hesitant. His eyes found hers across the crowd. And for a moment, the joy on his face flickered. He had seen. Danielle waved gently. "I'm here, baby," her motion said. "Keep going." He did. But slower. More deliberate. And as he walked off the stage, diploma in hand, Danielle exhaled, knowing this moment had already changed him forever. Danielle sat still, her hands pressed together in her lap as Jalen disappeared behind the curtain. Her throat was tight. Not from shame, no, that wasn't it, but from something heavier. A weight of stolen normalcy. Today was supposed to be about her son. About pride. Instead, it had turned into a silent battle for dignity. Beside her, Brian Doyle sat back down. He leaned toward her, voice low but steady. "You okay?" She nodded, slowly. "Yeah. Just didn't want him to see that." "He saw," Doyle said. "But he also saw how you handled it." Danielle didn't respond. There wasn't much to say. She had stood her ground, but at a cost. And the cost was visible in her son's eyes when he crossed that stage. The rest of the ceremony blurred past. Speeches droned on. Laughter echoed. Cameras flashed. But Danielle wasn't listening. She was replaying it, frame by frame. The moment the guard stepped in front of her. The rustle of whispers. Jalen's interrupted smile. All of it now etched into a day that was supposed to be untouchable. When the final name was called and caps were thrown into the air, Danielle remained seated. Her gaze was fixed on the side doors as students began pouring out. Some ran to their families. Some linked arms with friends. Then she saw him. Jalan moved fast, weaving through the crowd with long, sure strides. His gown was wrinkled, tassel askew. But his face was focused. He made a beeline straight for her. "Mom," he said, pulling her into a hug so tight it lifted her off her feet. Danielle held him just a second longer than usual, her hands gripping his shoulders when she finally pulled back. "You look tired," he said, looking her up and down. "I am tired," she admitted with a short laugh. "But I wasn't missing this." He nodded, then looked away, jaw tense. "What happened?" he asked. Danielle hesitated. "Doesn't matter. They were talking to you. I saw. I heard Doyle. You didn't do anything." "I didn't," she said. "But sometimes, that's not the point." Jalan looked at her, really looked. He wasn't the boy who used to ask if monsters were real anymore. He was almost grown. And he had just watched his mother be judged by strangers in front of his peers. "Did you feel embarrassed?" he asked. Danielle paused. "No," she said. "I felt angry. A little sad. But not embarrassed. I hate that it happened in front of me." "Maybe it's good you saw it," she said. "Because now you know what to do when someone tries to take your space." Jalan's eyes darted toward the guards still lingering near the exit. But standing nearby, like silent sentinels, were the 4 seals. Still there. Still watching. Still backing her up, even without a word. "Doyle's kind of scary," Jalan said, trying to break the tension. "Yeah," Danielle smirked, but in the best way. For the first time that day, her son laughed. It wasn't forced or polite. It was real. And it was enough to let Danielle breathe again. But the calm didn't last. A man in a navy suit with a clipboard approached them cautiously. Danielle recognized the nervous shuffle of someone sent to clean up a mess. "Hi there," he said, extending his hand. "Alan Prescott. Vice Principal. First, congratulations on your son's achievement. Really impressive student." Danielle shook his hand, her grip firm. "Thank you." Prescott glanced over his shoulder. "I wanted to personally address the misunderstanding from earlier. Our security team, well, they were trying to ensure safety. Tensions are high these days. You know how it is." Danielle tilted her head. "Tensions?" He fumbled. "I just mean, protocol. We have to be vigilant. We apologize if it came off the wrong way." "It didn't come off the wrong way," Jalan interjected. "It was the wrong way." Prescott blinked, clearly startled. Danielle's jaw tightened. "Let me stop you right there. I didn't feel uncomfortable. I felt disrespected." "That's different." Prescott adjusted his tie, sweat glistening along his brow. "I understand." "I'm not sure you do," Danielle replied. "If I had walked in here in a sundress and sandals, no one would have said a word. But in my uniform, dusty and all, you assumed the worst." The vice principal glanced at the guards behind him, who now stood even farther away, pretending to be occupied with their radios. "Again, we regret the inconvenience." "This wasn't an inconvenience," she said. "It was an insult. And now you're hoping a handshake makes it disappear." Before he could respond, Brian Doyle stepped up again. "Sir," Doyle said, "you need to stop talking and start listening." Prescott's mouth opened, then closed. "This isn't about protocol," Doyle continued. "It's about a Marine, a mother, being treated like a problem in front of her kid. You want to make this right? Start by fixing the way your people see us." Behind him, the 3 SEALs stepped forward, not to intimidate, but to stand in alignment. Their silence echoed louder than words. Prescott looked around, suddenly aware he wasn't just smoothing over an incident. He was being watched. And judged. "You're right," he finally said. "I hear you. I'll personally ensure this doesn't happen again. Thank you for your service, Gunnery Sergeant." Danielle gave a small nod, not because she believed him, but because she was finished. Prescott turned and walked away, faster than before. Jalen turned to Doyle. "How do you do that?" "Just, shut it all down with a look." Doyle chuckled. "Years of practice." Luis Mendez, one of the SEALs, added, "Your mom's tougher than we are. We just make noise." She sat still and made them nervous. Jalen smiled, but his eyes never left his mother. She looked up at him. "I'm sorry today got messy." He shook his head. "Don't be. It just made me prouder." And just then, as those words settled in the air, a camera flash went off nearby. Danielle turned, spotting a teenage girl in a black hoodie holding up her phone. Her father stood behind her, whispering something, but she didn't lower the camera. She was uploading the clip. Danielle's first instinct was to go over and ask the girl not to post it, but Jalen touched her elbow. "It's already out there, Ma," he said softly. "People saw. It's not on you." She looked at him. Her tired, grown-up, always watching son. This was his day. And yet, now it had become something bigger. Danielle stayed rooted in place as the soft hum of voices swelled around her. The ceremony had ended, but something else had begun, and she could feel it. A shift. A quiet ripple of attention, no longer shaped by judgment, but something closer to respect. Not loud, not overwhelming, just present. Behind her, Brian Doyle pulled out his phone and began tapping. "Already being shared on a few military boards," he said. "Someone's calling you the silent Marine mom." Danielle turned to him with a raised eyebrow. "What?" He grinned. "You've got a fan club. People love truth that doesn't need yelling." "Fan club," she said, half laughing, half incredulous. "No thank you." But even as she brushed it off, she could feel it happening. Parents were glancing at her differently now. A woman walking by gave her a thumbs up. A teenage boy offered a soft, awkward, "Thank you for your service," before disappearing into the crowd. She hadn't asked for this spotlight. She never wanted it. All she wanted was to see her son walk the stage. That's it. But the story had a life of its own now. An older man in a wrinkled tan blazer approached her. Danielle turned, cautious but calm. "Gunnery Sergeant Freeman?" he asked gently. "Yes. I saw what happened. I've been teaching here for 19 years. And I've seen too much like it," he said. "But today, I told my grandson to watch what strength looks like. He watched you." "Thank you." She swallowed hard. "Thank you, sir." He nodded once, pressed a hand to her shoulder, then walked away. Jalen stood nearby, leaning on the fence, quietly taking it all in. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, softly, "You think they'll talk about this on the news?" Doyle chimed in. "Oh, I'm sure they will. But they'll probably get it wrong." Jalen smirked. "Then what's the real story?" Danielle looked at him. His tassel was half torn, his gown dusty, but his eyes, those were clear, watchful, older than they should have had to be. She paused. Then said, slowly, "The real story is about knowing when you're right, and holding your ground when someone tries to take it from you. Even if it's quiet. Even if you're tired. Especially then." He nodded once, deeply. Letting it sink in. Just then, a woman approached with her young daughter, maybe 10 years old. "Hi," she said gently. "We just wanted to say thank you. For how you handled everything. My daughter saw it. We both did. You gave her an example." Danielle smiled, tired but genuine. Tell her to walk proud. No matter what. The girl nodded fast, holding her mother's hand tight. They disappeared back into the crowd. You good? Doyle asked, stepping beside her. Danielle let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Yeah. I think I am. They began walking back toward the parking lot. Just as the sunlight caught the edge of her boot, Danielle froze. The guards. They were still there. Off to the side. Half hidden behind leftover chairs and sagging balloon strings, like discarded pieces of a once rigid authority. They weren't doing anything. Just watching. Their postures no longer confident, but uncertain. Shrunk. The younger one looked down the moment their eyes met. The older one fidgeted with his belt, then straightened his back when she started walking toward them. You going to talk to them? Jalen asked. Danielle didn't answer right away. I'm thinking about it. You don't have to. I know. She walked over anyway. The older guard opened his mouth. Ma'am, I don't need a speech, she interrupted, her voice calm but solid. He closed his mouth. Lowered his eyes. I didn't know. I mean, I didn't look hard enough. You didn't listen hard enough either, she replied. He nodded slowly, face tight with something that looked like shame. I'm sorry. I really am. The younger one stepped forward now. Me too. I just followed his lead. I didn't stop to ask why. Danielle stared at them both. You don't have to explain it to me. But maybe next time, stop following. Start thinking. That uniform you questioned, people wear that to protect your right to stand exactly where you are now. Neither responded. They didn't need to. She turned and walked away, back toward her son. Back near the edge of the lot, the seals were saying their goodbyes. Luis Mendez handed Jalen something, small, square, and black. A patch. From his vest. For when someone tries to tell you who you are, Luis said. You already know. Jalen held it like it meant everything. Because in that moment, it did. Doyle turned to Danielle. You going to be all right? I'm always all right, she said, and this time, the smile on her face was real. Still stubborn. Still tired, she added. But proud. More proud than tired. He chuckled. They clasped hands in a firm shake, then he pulled her into a brief, brotherly hug. Next time you need a seat at a ceremony, he said, just call ahead. We'll get there early. Danielle laughed. Appreciate you, brother. The four of them walked off, fading into the background like they were never meant to be seen in the first place. Danielle turned to Jalen. Let's go home. Danielle's car was still baking in the late afternoon sun. The paint was chipped, the air conditioning struggled, and the upholstery had long since faded from desert drives and base parking lots. But it was home. It was hers. And it had never once failed to start, just like her. Jalen climbed into the passenger seat, the graduation patch still in his hand like it was made of gold. Danielle turned the key. The engine grumbled for a second, then settled into a familiar, steady hum. They didn't speak for a moment. Just let the moment breathe. Then Jalen asked, Can I ask you something? Shoot. He didn't look at her. Just out the window. You ever wish you'd stayed quiet back there? Like, not stood up for yourself? Danielle's eyes stayed on the road, but her fingers gripped the wheel a little tighter. She let the question hang in the air as they rolled past folding chairs, half-deflated balloons, and groups of students posing for pictures they'd remember forever. Then she answered. No, she said. Because if I don't stand up for me, who teaches you how to stand up for you? Jalen turned to her. That landed. She reached over and squeezed his hand. You did good today. I didn't do anything. You listened. You saw. That's the start. They pulled out onto the road. Behind them, the school began to shrink in the rearview mirror, like the entire storm had happened in a capsule of time, now sealed. A few blocks down, Danielle's phone buzzed again. Not her neighbor this time. Not a family group chat. It was a number she didn't recognize, followed by a message. "Ma'am, are you available for an interview regarding today's incident?" She stared at it, thumb hovering over the screen. Jalen peeked over. "Media?" She nodded. "Probably some local outlet. Or one of those blogs chasing clicks. You gonna answer?" The car was quiet except for the soft hum of the AC. Danielle looked at the message one more time. Then she gently tossed the phone into the center console. "Nah. Not today." "Why not?" She looked over at him. "Because what mattered already happened. You walked that stage. We stood our ground. What's left to say?" He leaned back in the seat, still clutching the patch. "You think they'll post it anyway?" "Probably," she said. "And people will talk. They'll argue in the comments, take sides, type things they'd never say in person." Jalen cracked a smile. "You sound like Uncle Ray." She laughed. Maybe he was right about some things. They hit a red light. Outside, a father was taking photos of his daughter with a glittering cap and a bright smile. There were hugs, signs, and proud tears, everything the day was supposed to be. Jalen's voice dropped. "You mad it got messed up?" Danielle shook her head slowly. "Not messed up. Just real." He waited. "This is the world we live in," she continued. "But that doesn't mean we stay quiet in it." The light turned green. She tapped the gas gently. "People think the fight is always loud. But sometimes it looks like a mom staying in her seat while someone tries to shame her out of it. Sometimes, it's just holding your ground long enough for someone else to see you." He stared out the window, nodding slowly. They rolled into a gas station. Danielle stepped out and filled the tank. Across the lot, a young couple was arguing. The man's voice was raised. The woman stood her ground. Danielle didn't know the story. Didn't need to. But she could tell, the woman wasn't scared. When Danielle climbed back in, Jalen had his phone out. "Ma," he said. "I was thinking, you should talk about it." "About what?" "This. Not to reporters or anything. But at the base. Or online. People need to hear it. From someone who gets it." She looked at him sideways. "You think so?" "Yeah. How many people freeze up when stuff like that happens?" "You didn't." "That's something." Danielle leaned her head back against the seat. Maybe he was right. Not for headlines. But for someone sitting in silence. Someone who never told their own story. A group of new recruits. A circle of single moms at a support group. Just one person, hearing it from someone who had been there and didn't flinch. She pulled her phone from the console and opened her notes app. Hold your ground. Not out of anger. Out of love. For your kids. For your story. For the space you already earned. She hit save. That was enough, for now. Jalen didn't ask what she typed. But he smiled like he already knew. "What?" she asked. "Nothing," he said. "Just glad you're my mom." She smiled back, a little crooked and a little teary. "Me too." They pulled back onto the road, the sun low in the sky. No guards. No stage. No judgment. Just her son, and the road ahead. The sun had dipped just enough to cast a golden trail across the hood of the car. Danielle's fingers tapped gently on the wheel as they drove in silence, the quiet not awkward, but full. Like a conversation already spoken. Jalen stared out the window, still holding the seal patch loosely in one hand. He hadn't let go of it since Louise handed it to him. Danielle glanced at it, then at him, then back at the road. You gonna sew that onto your backpack or something? He looked at it. I don't know. Kind of feels like something I shouldn't mess with. Like, sacred, you know. She nodded. Yeah. I get that. They pulled onto the freeway, merging into a stream of traffic, minivans filled with families still in graduation gear, convertibles blaring music, a few trucks with proud dads at the wheel. Jalin watched it all pass by. I don't think I'm ever gonna forget today, he said suddenly. Danielle didn't answer right away. Me neither. But not for the reason I thought I would, he added. I thought this would be the day I remember because I crossed that stage. Took the diploma. Heard people cheer. But that's not what I'll remember. What will you remember? She asked, already knowing the answer. That they tried to make you move, he said quietly. And you didn't. Danielle gripped the wheel just a little tighter, not because she was angry, but because that sentence cut straight to the truth. And once you hear truth like that from your child, it sits with you. They passed a billboard advertising the Marines. Earned. Never given. Danielle smirked. Fitting, she said aloud. Jalin chuckled. Think you'll ever tell them off? Like, go back and really give it to those guards? Nope. Why not? You earned it. I don't need to, she said. I said what I needed to say. The rest, they'll have to live with. I'm not going to carry their ignorance on my back. He sat back, impressed. That's kind of deep. She glanced over. Getting philosophical on me already? He grinned. Hanging around SEALs and Marines all day will do that to you. Danielle laughed, a full laugh now. The tension that had wrapped itself around her since 3:30 that afternoon had started to loosen, finally. Slowly. Like a weight being lifted in stages. They pulled off the highway and into a local strip mall where a pizza joint they both liked was still open. Danielle parked in front of it. You hungry? She asked. I could eat a whole pie. Good, she said. Because that's what we're doing. Inside, the smell of garlic and tomato sauce hit them like a warm blanket. No one gave them a second look. No stares. No questions. Just two people, mother and son, ordering pepperoni and sausage like any other day. They slid into a booth in the corner. Jalin picked at the napkin dispenser. So, what now? Danielle raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I mean after this. After today. You gonna just go back to base and pretend nothing happened? She tilted her head. Not pretend. But I'm not going to live in it, either. He nodded slowly, chewing on that. You know what I might do? She added after a moment. What? Talk to the young ones. New recruits. Especially the women. Tell them what happened. What it felt like. What I learned. Yeah, he said quickly, eyes lighting up. That's what I meant earlier. Not for clout. Just so people know. The server dropped off their drinks, and Danielle leaned in, elbows on the table. You ever see someone get tested, Jalin? He nodded. Yeah. A few times. Some of the younger kids. Teachers would try to bait them. Or security. Or other students. What did they do? Some yelled. Some stormed out. Some just swallowed it. Danielle stirred her straw. You know what's the hardest thing to do? What? To stay calm. To stay seated. To not shrink, and not explode either. Just, stay present. So they have to see you. Really see you. Jalin was quiet. That's what I want to teach, she said softly. That being visible isn't the same as being loud. And sometimes being still is the most powerful thing you can do. He took a sip of his soda. You ever wish you could go back and do things differently? Danielle thought hard. Not really. I mean, sure, I wish it hadn't happened in the first place. I wish I'd gotten there earlier. I wish your moment was cleaner. But if it had to happen, I'm proud of how it did. The pizza came, steaming and perfect. They both reached for a slice without another word. Outside the window, the last colors of daylight were fading. Danielle reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out her scratched military ID, set it on the table, and tapped it once. This little card, she said. Some people think it's supposed to open doors. But it's really just a reminder. Of what? Of how many times I had to prove myself to earn it. And how I'll probably have to keep proving it. Jalen looked at the card, then at her. You shouldn't have to. No, I shouldn't, she said. But here we are. He stared at her for a long moment. You know what I was most afraid of? He asked. What? That I wouldn't be able to do anything. That I'd just sit there while they treated you like that. Danielle smiled. You didn't sit. You stood with me, even if it was just with your eyes. He blinked fast and looked down at his slice. And in that quiet, greasy, perfect booth, under fluorescent lights and cracked tile floors, something unshakable settled between them. The bond of survival. Of dignity. Of showing up, even when it's uncomfortable. Danielle took one more bite, leaned back, and exhaled. Sometimes life hands you noise. And sometimes, you answer it with silence that thunders louder than a shout. The drive home was slower now, not because of traffic, but because neither of them was in a rush. The windows were cracked slightly, letting the breeze in. Jalen rested his head against the seat, his patch still cradled in his palm. Danielle kept one hand on the wheel, the other drumming a slow rhythm against the door. There was peace now. Earned, not granted. They turned onto their street, quiet, familiar, lined with mailboxes and basketball hoops tilted at strange angles. Danielle pulled into their driveway, killed the engine, and just sat there a moment, letting the silence stretch out. Jalen spoke first. So what happens tomorrow? Danielle looked over. Tomorrow. I go back to base. Uniform still smells like sweat and dust. He smiled faintly. And me? You wake up. You keep walking tall. Maybe with that patch sewn somewhere only you can see. Maybe just in your mind. They both stepped out of the car, feet hitting the gravel with soft thuds. As Danielle unlocked the front door, her phone buzzed again. This time, the screen lit up with media inquiry, National Syndicate in the subject line. She hesitated. Jalen watched her. You gonna answer that one? Danielle looked at the message for a beat longer. Then hit mark as read and locked the phone. Still no, she said. Not my story to monetize. Just my life. They entered the house, the familiar scent of home wrapping around them. Laundry half folded on the couch. A basketball propped against the fridge. The ordinary chaos that made life real. Jalen headed to his room, but paused in the hallway. Ma. Yeah. That guy, the one who said he just followed the other guard's lead? Danielle turned to face him. He said he didn't ask himself why, Jalen continued. That stuck with me. Good, she said. Because that's the first step to changing anything. Asking why. Jalen nodded. I think that's what I'll remember most. Not the guards. Not even the SEALs. Just that. Ask why. She smiled. And maybe one day, someone will look at you standing your ground, and remember to do the same. He grinned. Like a chain reaction. Exactly. That night, after Jalen had gone to bed and the house had gone quiet, Danielle sat alone in the kitchen, a cup of tea in her hand and a notebook open in front of her. She'd written only 4 words on the page. Hold your ground. Always. She thought about the girl in the hoodie, the one who posted the video. By now it was probably viral. She could almost hear the comment sections, the split opinions, the digital battlefield of takes and reactions. But none of that mattered. What mattered had already happened. Her son saw her. He saw what dignity looked like when it was tested. He saw strength that didn't need to shout. He saw a black woman in a worn Marine uniform sit still when the world tried to move her, and watched 4 SEALs rise in silent defense of what was right. She didn't plan it. She didn't ask for it. But in a moment where most people shrink, Danielle Freeman stayed seated, and the world stood up. And somewhere, out there, someone else would remember that image the next time they felt out of place. Sometimes, the strongest move you can make is not moving at all. Danielle Freeman didn't wear her uniform for recognition. She wore it because she earned it. But when others saw a problem instead of her pride, she didn't yell. She didn't leave. She held her ground, and showed her son, and the world, what real power looks like. If you've ever been judged for how you look, where you're from, or what you wear, this story is for you. Because dignity doesn't ask permission. And presence doesn't need applause. If this story moved you, leave a comment below, let us know what part hit you the hardest. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, true-to-life stories right here on True Echo. And if someone in your life needs to hear this message, share it. Their moment might be next.